Everyone, welcome to the brown belt level. This is the frequently asked questions, or what I call common efficient integrator questions. And this is part of our overall AI Mastery Series and specifically our ChatGPT Mastery. And at the brown belt level, we're now confident in our use of custom GPTs, and we're looking at ways we can improve them. So the entire focus of the brown belt level is we understand that ChatGPT makes our life easier. We're using custom GPTs, and the insight we want you to take away is that your standard operating procedures are now assets that can be handed off or scaled. And really, truly, in my version of heaven, small business owners would trade these like trading cards. We all win when we have better systems in our business. So for clarity, documenting is a step towards delegation. It's not just about organization. If our systems aren't being used and they're not being improved, why did we do them in the first place? And for growth mindset, we want to free up capacity to move from tactical day-to-day leadership to strategic long-term leadership. And by the end of this, our people are saying, I'm done with saving minutes. I want to save entire days. So in the brown belt, I have a favorite saying we will be hearing at least once. It comes up a lot. This has been attributed to Sun Tzu, though I will say I cannot find it exactly in my most recent copy of The Art of War, but it resonates and it feels like something you would say, so I attribute it to Sun Tzu. If you know a better attribution, let me know. The quote is, strategy without tactics is the slowest path to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And I humbly submit that there is a statistic that over 5 or 10 years, 80% of all businesses fail. I believe the reason is we get too tactical too soon. We don't put enough effort into the strategic level, and that's where a lot of small businesses and, quite frankly, larger businesses stumble. Now, I believe that ChatGPT is an exceptional tool for strategic leadership, and if we have the right strategy, we can easily test and measure and implement the right tactics. So you've heard me say this again and again. Effective is doing the right things. Efficient is doing things right. Our goal is we're going to do the right things with our eliminate, automate, delegate, and we're going to do things right with our scientific method and so on. So I just want to recap where you are. And if you're watching this video, I hope you've made it through the first 5 stages. And you should have watched our brown belt theory course, because that is, of course, what I'm answering after the course. These are the frequently asked questions I hear. And basically at this point, we're stage 6 out of a total of 10. So stage 9 is our top one. We start at stage 0. Yes, I did that on purpose. White belt is we know nothing, so therefore it could be nothing but stage 0 in my world. And stage 10 is empowered advocate, where we are really, really confident in our abilities. We are able to train others to become confident in their abilities, and we're finding new ways to innovate and to optimize our skills. So I built this program, and basically the whole point of it was over a 3-year period, I spent at least 10,000 hours using ChatGPT. I will admit probably about 7,000 of those hours were rabbit holes and tangents. But all of those things taught me what I know today. And so I built this course to help people get up to speed quickly. I don't want you to have to spend 3 years and 10,000 hours. I want you to get up to speed quickly. So we are in stage 6, efficient integrator. And these are the frequently asked questions that I get. Question 1, how to identify which tasks should be automated, delegated, or eliminated? And you can tell I'm thrown because, quite frankly, this is a question I get. However, I always say it in the order of eliminated, automated, or delegated. So here's the secret, and you will find what works for you. I have figured out, I've built a custom GPT, and its entire role is to help me identify what I can eliminate, what I can automate, and what I can delegate. So the background of that, and this is a critical tool, so I'm going to share it. What I've done is I've used the Pareto principle and a couple of other tools. And basically, what I've done is identified the things in my business. So the first layer is being effective. So we're eliminating anything that doesn't contribute to the success of my business according to my long-term vision. I call those core objectives, and what I have are 3 core objectives. Call them the North Star. They guide everything that I do. Now, within those core objectives, I create a strategic plan, and a core objective is sort of the 5 to 10 year, what does success look like ultimately? It is the long-term destination where I want to be. And then what I do is I build a strategic plan that kind of covers from today up until about a year in the future. And the idea is that my strategic plan has to get me towards my core objectives. If my strategies aren't getting me there, it doesn't matter what tactics I do, my strategies are wrong. So I spend a little bit of time on the strategic plan, and I know what success looks like to me long term. And then what I do is I will use the Pareto principle, and I look at Pareto from the point of view of 20% of results, 20% of effort yields 80% of result. Now that also means 20% of problems yield 80% of your friction. So what I look at is off the top right away, what is the 20% that I should be optimizing? That's the positive. So I want to increase the positive 20%. That gives me 80% of my positive results. Now, on the bottom of my business, I want to take off the bottom 20% that causes 80% of my friction. So that is my first pass through for what I'm going to eliminate. So first and foremost, if something doesn't help me achieve my long-term strategic goals, probably a good candidate to be eliminated. And then what I do is I look at what I have left. So hopefully I've eliminated 20% of my problems to give me 80% reduction in friction. Now I'm going to look at what remains and find out what can and should be automated. And again, I put a couple of Pareto principle filters here, and we walk through this in the dojo. Until we've automated as much as we can, we don't delegate. And once we've automated, then we delegate. And the reason for the eliminate, automate, delegate order is if we do it any other way, we're either automating or delegating inefficiency. And so we've just taken one person who's busy, overworked, doing the wrong things, and we've scaled that to make more people too busy, overworked, doing the wrong things. So effectiveness says we need to eliminate first, then we automate, then we delegate. And basically, once we've eliminated and automated, we can use our custom GPTs, our user guide, and other materials, our SOPs, to train the people we're delegating to. Now, if there's a task that you don't know how to do, and you're delegating it to somebody who doesn't know how to do it, you're going to have to figure out a starting point and work from there. But in a perfect world, if you've read a book like Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, we're going to look at who's the expert that can do this. So in a perfect world, you're delegating things to people who actually know how to do them. And again, one of the things you can delegate is creating SOPs. We'll get into that. But basically what I'm looking for here, and again, this is a theme that'll echo throughout the earlier belts. Our first mission is to identify at least 10 hours of hellish tasks we don't enjoy. They're repetitive, maybe they're monotonous, they keep coming up over and over, they're time consuming. My goal is to eliminate 10 hours of hell, and we replace that with what I believe it should be 6 hours of heaven, which is the highly strategic, highly effective, highly leveraged tasks that accomplish your strategy, not your tactics. So basically, if you think about it, we're just shifting 10 hours of tactics out of your world and replacing it with 6 hours of strategy. And that gives you 4 hours net savings to go do anything else, get a hobby, spend time with friends, family, you name it, take a course. So that's the starting point, is how do we save some time? Question 2, what's the best way to create a living system, one that evolves as the business grows? And this answer might surprise you. I get this question in question in various forms, in different wording and things like that. But the simple answer is we need to build a culture around our systems. So if our employees or our team or even ourselves, if we believe that systems are something that is done to us, we will always resist. So we want to build a culture where people believe that the system exists to guide us and to make our lives easier. And really what we're doing is we're trying to standardize at least 80% of the business so that we have time to focus on the 20% that can't be. So the way I see this is a symbiotic living system. We're going to share ideas. We're going to involve our team. And really, truly, we're going to find ways to improve the living system. Now, I will let you customize this to your business. I use the Google ecosystem exclusively. I don't use any Microsoft products anymore at all. If you don't believe me, my computers are all Linux-based. Everything I do is in the Google ecosystem. So I have a Google Drive. I have a Google Sheet. I have folders and subfolders. I have sheets that are used to track, and I have individual documents. And basically what I've done is I've embraced the learning styles. There are 5 main ones. One is your visual learner. You need pictures and diagrams. 2, you're an auditory learner. You like to listen to things. 3, you're reading and writing is how you learn. You like to read books. You like to write things down. You take a lot of notes. That's me, by the way. The 4th one is kinesthetic. You learn by touching and by doing. So you need to do workshops where you're walking through things, you're processing things. You really like to feel things in your hands and explore them. And then the last main way people learn is through something called community. And those are the kind of people who like to learn something, and then they solidify their learning by discussing it with others. That's we meet that need in our digital dojo. So if you prefer to be part of a community, that's what we do. But basically what we do is we have video, we have written documents. So the video is a walkthrough showing how to do the thing. We have an SOP that step by step, here's what to do. That's the reading and the checklist part, which helps people who are visual as well. And then we have a user guide to show the user how to interact with the custom GPT that supports that activity. And then that's how I keep it going. And then I have a master spreadsheet where I track what systems we have, what SOPs we have, and who owns that particular outcome, and when was that system last reviewed or updated, right down to the individual SOP, when did we last update them. So that is my opinion. If you've got a shared drive, if you have a way to share files, I assume Microsoft's got equal. I just don't play in the Microsoft space, so I don't actually talk about it. But basically, you want something that you have some ability to control access to, and it's easy for your team to collaborate and share. And what I do with my SOPs, once we've agreed and finalized them, I share them as comment only. And that way people can add some comments to it. And depending on the comments, then we determine when something needs to be updated. Question 3, how can I audit my current AI stack to ensure everything is working together efficiently? So I will be really, really candid here. I am ruthless with my technology. I have eliminated everything that doesn't fit more or less into my Google ecosystem. So I used to have a bunch of workarounds and I had to adjust my workflow because I had too much technology. Now everything is more or less in Google. The obvious exception, we're talking about ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT, which is outside of the Google ecosystem. However, when it's appropriate, I use Gemini, which is the Google equivalent of a large language model. But basically what I do, the eliminate, automate, delegate, it becomes critical. What we're doing is we're looking for frustrations in the system. We're looking for friction, things that legitimately slow us down. And so we want to remove friction. And one of my observations is if technology is slowing us down or causing us to stop, it might be the problem itself. So again, this is something you can use, and we do this in our brown belt. I have a custom GPT that I use to keep track of my tech. So I have very strange and very specific things. I have within my ecosystem the exact specifications of every computer that I use or my team uses. So if something needs to be fixed or upgraded, I know what's compatible. And based on the software we use, which is almost exclusively, as I said, Google, everything has to run in Google Chrome. Everything has to be used simply. So if something can't be done in Google, I now look at it and say, is it something I actually need to do? And it's amazing how many times the answer is actually no. Now, if I can't do something with my current tech and I know for a fact that something else out there is a better option, then I will implement it, not before. So part of eliminate, automate, delegate is we don't let stuff in the door that doesn't serve us in the first place. So I'm a firm believer in saying no quickly, and yes has to be a proven experiment where we prove that it does in fact need to be done. So my advice, people have too much tech today. Look at your credit card statement, look at the memberships and this and that you have. Really, truly, I run my entire business now. I pay for 3 tools. I pay for the Google ecosystem, about $20 a user a month. I pay for ChatGPT, again, $20 per user per month. And I pay about $20 a month for Canva. Those are my 3 big things. Anything else, I don't need it. And if I do need it, this is where I get funny. I might actually offload it and send it to a subcontractor and let them worry about the right software and the right tools. I just care about the outcome. Question 4, how do I prevent over-engineering systems that no one else understands? Okay, full disclosure, I live in the world of complexity. I can over-engineer something as simple as a doorbell. Why just have a button you can push when maybe it can play music or it can have settings or things like that? I over-engineer almost everything. Now, on the flip side, I love taking over-engineered, complicated things and simplifying them. Now, smarter friends than I have said to me, Jeff, why don't you just go straight to simple? Well, if I didn't over engineer it, I wouldn't understand it well enough to go to simple. Albert Einstein is credited with saying, if you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it well enough. Until I've tinkered with it and I've created this complex thing. By the way, when I was a kid, I loved the game Mousetrap because you could build all these crazy things. I like to over-engineer, and then I look at it and go, okay, what could I take away? So it's almost like building the world's most complicated machine and then stripping it down to the minimum number of parts. So what I do, and this is really, really simple, I'm going to give you 2 words to watch for, and I'm going to give you a process that works consistently. So first things first, a system relates to an area of a business that you have tasks that need to be accomplished to generate results in that system. So for example, we have the accounting system, the finance system, legal, operations, marketing, sales, etc. Within a system, we have individual processes, and those accomplish a single task. So if your processes include the words and, or the word and or, it generally means you've overcomplicated it because you're trying to, with the word and, you're shoving multiple tasks into one system or one process or even one process step. So if you have the word and in your processes, especially in your process steps, and almost always means you need to take that line, break it in 2, and whatever's before the and is line 1, whatever's after the and is line 2. Now, the word or represents a decision, and at that point, you need to first of all be clear, how is the decision made? What are the possible options, A, B, C? When do you pick which option and why? And then for each option, you're probably going to have a sub process where you follow the steps for that option. So that's how we get clear. We want to break this down into minute pieces. Now, what we do internally is we record one of our best people doing a task. They record a walkthrough. We transcribe that. We run it through one of our custom GPTs, and we create a written SOP from it. We then give it back to the human, ask them to edit and validate it. And then the final step is we test it. And what we do is we give it to a novice in that area, maybe somebody who's never heard of it, and we ask them to go through it, ask any questions they have. We write those questions down, and then we want them to try and perform the process. And in a perfect world, if it's not over-engineered, they should be able to walk through it step by step and produce the same result our expert did without any help. So that's what we do. And really, truly, in the dojo, we share with others, we peer-to-peer review, iron sharpens iron. If we can't practice and go through your process without you standing over our shoulder and helping us, it's not ready yet. Or it's over-engineered and we need to simplify it. So we use the Pareto principle a lot to pull things apart and get back to simple. Question 5, what's the simplest way to train my team or custom GPTs to handle recurring workflows? The simplest way is to have a process for creating processes. And then once you have that process, we actually go so far as we have a process for creating the process. Then we have a process for reviewing it and quality control on it, a process for training the team on how to test it. And then we have a process for how do we update it. So the simplest way is to get the team on board, help them understand how the processes were created, and this is where it gets magical. Recurring workflows implies that you know what the steps are and you're clear on it. And by the way, if you have a team, it's always good to engage people and discuss what steps do we follow, what order is best, why is it this way, What are common pitfalls? What are some best practices? What are the things that our best people do by instinct that our lowest performing don't necessarily know or understand? And basically, the idea is we as a group build the processes, and then each individual has to practice, and we build in a feedback loop, quality control first, and then a feedback loop. People should be meeting the metrics or the KPIs. If they're not, that can identify areas where maybe we either need to refine the custom GPT in our workflow, or we need to train some of the individuals. And by the way, metrics are great because if we track them across the team as an individual and then collectively as a team, we can quickly identify who is, in fact, our top performer. We have numbers to prove it. We can quantifiably say you're 10% better than others. And it allows us to identify who might need some help. Question 6. How can I use data from my ChatGPT or other AI tools to make smarter business decisions? This is actually one of my favorite questions because I love data and I love data-driven decisions. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I do not support people or businesses who do not use data to make decisions. You're guessing, not leading, not managing. So again, as we build out our SOPs, as we build our internal systems, everything should have at least one metric that we measure to answer the question, are we doing this better today than we did yesterday? So that might lead to a whole bunch of data. Some of the data matters more than others. Some you might track. I use a lot of spreadsheets. Some are sort of trends to observe and track and optimize. Some might be quarterly, we review just to make sure there's no problems. But honestly, what you measure gets managed. So I build right into most of my models, pretty much into all of my systems, an immediate self-scoring. So we have in our SOPs, we have our inputs, we have our process steps, we have our quality control, our feedback loop, and then our outputs. We usually know by the end of our quality control and our feedback loop if that system is working or not. And this is something to monitor. And if the systems degrade over time, we need to optimize them and we need to improve them. Now, the other thing I advocate for is 1% improvement based on a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. The idea is really, really simple. We're doing what we do. We're running our systems. And at the end, we're going to check the quality control. And if our systems aren't improving day in and day out consistently, we need to look at which ones we should be revisiting. And by the way, some non-critical systems, we're going to set a baseline and say, as long as we're above this, we're fine. But mission critical ones, we will monitor a little bit closer. Question 7, how do I build documentation that's simple enough to maintain, but detailed enough to scale? This really, really depends on the size of your team, the complexity of the team, and quite frankly, the skill set. What I have as a minimum documentation is I keep a time-stamped video. So the day we created the process, this was how we did it. If that changes dramatically, we will film and record a new video to update it. But basically, I have a video for the visual learners. We have our standard SOP, standard operating procedure for our pretty much everybody. That will have checklists, it'll have examples, it'll have reminder prompts for the humans, it'll have sample prompts for the custom GPT. And then we have a user guide that teaches our users how to use the custom GPT. And our custom GPT has detailed documentation that shows here's what it does, here's the system that it's following, here's the inputs, here's the process steps, here's the quality control metrics, here's the feedback loop, and here's what a good output looks like. Maybe you give it a bad example of a bad output to avoid. But basically, I use a little bit of Google Docs and a lot of Google Sheets, and it becomes a folder structure. And the key is, for me, I build this wherever I'm using it. So I live in the Google ecosystem, which means I always have my Google Chrome open. I always have Google Drive open. I have usually at least one Google Sheet or Google document open. So I built all of it within the Google Drive ecosystem so that I can always find it. Now, I've been playing around with Google Sites, so I have a different site for each one of my systems so that I can send a person there. You might want to separate based on roles. Maybe it's by department, maybe it's by task or project. But basically, I think it was Robert Allen who talked about it in his book, Getting Things Done. You want people to find what they need, where they need it to do the job they need to do. So if that is a physical process, that's where you put posters on walls, things like that. But really, truly, with the tools we have today, there is no reason to not have very detailed SOPs that you are optimizing over time. Question 8. How can I ensure my systems stay ethical, accurate, and aligned with my brand's values? This is an interesting question, and the reality is the corporate North Star, our vision, our guiding light, our goals, our mission statement, those should in fact set our ethical parameters. So if we're doing the strategic planning right, the tactics should always stay within our ethical guidelines. Now, if you have specific regulatory rules, things like that, you can actually embed them in your custom GPT and make them as non-negotiable, non-violatable rules. So this will be part of your building. As you're building your systems and processes, you can give it guiding ethics or rules or principles, whatever you want. And in terms of accuracy, again, we have those metrics that we're going to follow, the KPIs. We're testing, and honestly, accuracy should be one of your, at the very least, if it's not, well, it should be built into your system, and it should be built into your final quality control, where you, as the adult in the conversation, sit down and say, is this ethical? Is it accurate? And quite frankly, is it aligned with my brand's values? So one of the things I do is I will create an ethics guidelines document. I will create a metrics document where I'm listing my metrics or KPIs. And I also have a branding document. Now, I actually have a custom GPT that builds these. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember all of the pieces of it, but more or less, the custom GPT creates a document and says, these are our brand values. Everything we do must represent this. And so in our quality control, in our feedback loop, in our final sign-off, we're assessing to make sure we've met or stuck with all of our brand values. Now, for what it's worth, this could be a little more complicated, but for me, I go so far as to create what I call the perfect prospect persona. We'll just call it persona because saying it over and over is a tongue twister. But my persona it is the vision of who I want to work with. It is, I get very detailed on their fears, their frustrations, their wants, their aspirations. I understand their demographics, their psychographics, and basically, if ethics, accuracy, and a certain brand are relevant to them, all of that is documented in the persona. And what I do, which makes it really, really powerful, is all of my quality control and feedback loops. The final step is, does this add value to my persona? And if the answer is not unequivocally hell yes, we go back and we revisit. So we'll ask what resonates with them, what doesn't, where are we aligned, where are we misaligned. And basically that's my little quality control, is what would my avatar say if they read about this tomorrow? So we're always looking at how do we make things better for our persona? How do we add value to them? And if we can add value to them and meet our beliefs and our values, that becomes a really perfect synergy. And by the way, if you build a business, I personally believe build it around your personal ethics and values, because you're going to resonate and be consistent. You're going to attract people who believe what you believe. They support the things you support. It's just easier. Now, you might say, I want to offer something, but I'm going to challenge you. If you are a devout Christian and you believe in thou shalt not commit murder, you're not going to be comfortable selling things that facilitate murder. So, for example, you'd be terrible at running a hitman business. Not saying anybody should be running one, but I'm just saying if something is morally against what you believe, you're going to lose sleep at night. So personally, I build things. I created the Digital Dojo as an example. I love learning. I love teaching. And I'm really tired of people who are saying, hey, look at me. This is how smart I am. I'm saying, you know what? Let's prove it. So I built the dojo to educate and inform. And for me personally, I love to master something. So I built the dojo around mastery. Anything else, I can create videos. I can give you those quick dopamine hits and go, here's a shortcut. Here's how to make $1 million on ChatGPT. I don't care about the flashiness. I care about real businesses building real business value. So therefore, I built in mastery so that my students master their skills alongside me as I'm teaching them. So that's my advice. Build something you believe in. You'll have way more fun, and you will be able to look your clients in the eye and say, hand on your heart, I believe this is in your best interests. And by the way, if somebody's not a fit to work with you, don't bend your business to suit them. Just say, sorry, we're not a fit. I wish you all the best. Maybe go talk to my colleague or my competitor. Question 9. We're getting into the meat of this. I hear this a lot. What should I measure now? Time saved, quality improved, or outcomes achieved? And I'm going to give you a couple of answers, both sarcastic, but both mostly serious. The first answer is it depends. And the second answer is yes, all of the above. So let me explain. We have our eliminate, automate, delegate mandate. So basically what we want to do is measure time saved. That's the eliminate, automate, delegate. We should be targeting net savings of 4 hours a week. So we're eliminating 10 hours. That's your goal. 10 hours of tactical, low-level, monotonous, draining work, hell as we call it. We're substituting in 6 hours of highly strategic, highly leveraged heaven. So time saved is critical. Quality improved, yes, yes, and yes. So you may recall we talked about attract, convert, deliver. If we can improve how we attract, we can improve how we convert, and then we can improve how we deliver. if we improve all three of those, we're going to have a better business that's more profitable, has more impact, and significantly less friction. So quality improved is about quality of life for us, for our employees, for our clients. And then honestly, I don't know how you separate outcomes achieved from anything else. If I'm in business, my goal is, number one, I have to make a profit. If I don't make a profit, I don't succeed. Number two, I want to solve people's problems. So I should, in fact, be solving problems and doing it well. The better I do it and the bigger the problem I solve, the more people will pay me. And by the way, it fascinates me. I meet a lot of people who can't tell me the answer to one simple question. The question is, how is my life better for having worked with you? And believe it or not, a lot of people, they know all of the elements. They can tell me the features. Let's say that's the ingredients. They can list it ad nauseum. They can tell you, if you're going to buy a computer, they'll list out all of the components, and you've got hard drive space, you've got all kinds of things. But really, if they don't know the outcome I'm looking for, I don't know if that set of specifications meets my needs. So I challenge all of my people. My stated outcome for the ChatGPT Mastery is that you will master ChatGPT. Now, mastery to me is specifically defined. One, you will learn it at a high level so that it will save you time in your business, give you better results. So one, you've learned it. Two, you will teach others how to get to that same high level of mastery and skill. And then step three in mastery, in my opinion, is you need to be innovating and optimizing. So you're not just, you've learned it yourself, you are highly competent, highly confident, you've taught others to get to that level, and now you're innovating and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. That is my goal for this mastery. And what I did was I took that ultimate goal of mastery and I broke it down into 10 belts. So I made it bite-sized. I taught people the mindset, the skill set, the gear set they needed, the community skills, and of course, the attitude skills. But basically, everything builds on everything. So for me, I care about business owners. I don't want anybody wasting their time learning AI. I want to help them achieve their goals and help them do it better and faster. So that guides all that I build. It guides the way I've structured the material. It guides the badges that we created to reward progress. It guides the belts that we have to mark that progress a little bit bigger and more concretely. And by the way, part of the magic of the belt levels is you can look around at your peers. We break our groups up into groups of 3. So we have our beginner, which is white, yellow, and orange. Then we have our intermediate, which is green, blue, purple. And then we have the advanced, which is really brown and red, and sometimes black. And then our really advanced is the black belt and the double black belt. Now, I say 3 groups because the advanced group, they're generally present in all of our groups, but we have 3 distinct groups. So you're going to be in a group with people at or near your level or aspiring to your level. And then we have the black belts and the double black belts like myself. We're in and out to make sure you're helping one another, you're learning, you're growing, and you're progressing to master the skills you need to move on to the next level. Question 10, how do I know when it's time to optimize again versus leave a system alone? So I'm kind of inclined to say you will know, and really annoying, ask you to trust me on that. However, what I will say is we're always using the Pareto principle, and we're always looking at the key frustration process from eMyth. And basically, we are going to optimize something within the Pareto principle until we get to a point where there is no big significant gains left. So we actually do something really extreme. The traditional Pareto is the 80-20, where 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. If you go in 2 layers deep, so apply 80-20 to 80-20 to 80-20, roughly 51.2% of your results come from 1% of your effort. So what we're looking for is that 1% effort that gives us the big 51% gain. Now, you're not always going to see this. The math is not always going to be perfect, but I do know with certainty, if we can identify the 1% lever that makes the biggest difference, we'll know it. Now, what we do, and again, we look at 90-day sprints and things like that. Typically in a 90-day sprint, we're going to have a project each for attract, convert, and deliver. And the goal within each of those projects over 90 days is we're going to find the 1% improvement in each of those 3 projects that gives us 51% of our benefit. And on the flip side, we're going to identify and eliminate the 1% of friction that causes 51% of our problems. So basically what we're doing is we're optimizing our best results and we're minimizing our worst. And in my experience, your results may vary, but in my experience, if you do 3 rounds of 1%, so you take 1% on the top, you improve it, take 1% off the bottom, you eliminate, automate, delegate. If we do that 3 times, we actually end up getting about 94% of our desired outcome without having done the 100% work that most people think is necessary. So you don't need to believe me. We demonstrate this, but basically what we do is every 90 days, we have those 3 projects, and in each of those projects, we'll identify, so we do 3 sprints of 30 days. So the first sprint, we're going to identify the 1% that we can add at the top or polish at the top, and the 1% we take off at the bottom, so that we get 51% of our top end improvement, reduce 51% of our bottom end drag. We do that every 30 days so that by the end of 90 days, we hopefully have met our goal of optimizing 3 systems, 1 each for how do we attract clients, how do we convert prospects into clients, and how do we deliver wow. So that discipline, if we can use that word, doesn't allow us time to randomly optimize everything. We're always experimenting and optimizing as we need to, as we go forward. Now, a caveat. This assumes everything is working the way it should. We don't have any flaws, nothing's breaking. But again, we're going to have those KPIs and the metrics. And if we start to see degrading performance or new friction coming along, that's a clear signal that we should be optimizing that system. At a bare minimum, I recommend once a quarter, spend a day as a team and identify areas as a collective that need to be improved. If that's too frequent, at the minimum once a year. Honestly, I'd rather do it quarterly, but you do what works for you. But at least once a year, you should be looking at all of your systems as a whole and identifying which ones feed into which. Because if you think about it, let's pretend all of your processes yield a 90% success rate. If you stack a process on top of a process, on top of a process, your losing 10%, and that 10% will compound. So 3 processes in, you've lost a bigger number than just 10%. So what we want to do is identify the early stage problems, because the earlier in our system a problem happens, the bigger the compounding effect of the mistake or the error. So I usually start at the beginning of the system and work through. But again, if there's big errors, I will always tackle those as urgent. So most of our time, we want to be strategic and proactive. Sometimes we need to know when to be reactive. So this is an invitation. If you want to learn more, you can join us. Our white belt program is free. You'll see there's different levels, different investments for those levels. And really, this represents my belief that you're going to have more leverage and a higher return on investment the more skilled and confident you get. So I leave it to the lower levels. It's cheaper. You can learn how to grow. There's no pressure. And for the record, there's never any pressure. If you're comfortable at a stage, you can stay there as long as you need to. We teach people, the theory is free. The frequently asked questions is free. We teach people so that they can be self-sufficient. I'd rather you succeed than get committed and spend a lot of time and energy with me. The reason people pay to join the dojo is to be part of our community and to practice the theory and the frequently asked questions to help solve some of their problems. So if you're one of those people who likes to do it yourself, I applaud you. All the videos are out there. You can watch them. If you want to learn in a community and help each other grow, then join us. And again, we don't need to worry about the top tiers because most people are still at the brown belt or below. So if you want to learn more, pharosbusiness.com/digital dojo. We have a newsletter. We have a few resources. And we're always sharing upcoming events and things where we were actually doing practical implementation. One of my favorite things is I have sort of a potluck event where people bring a problem and collectively we build a system. So pharosbusiness.com/digital-dojo. Thank you.